One time for the one time, two time for the two time. Welcome home, stars, them. You are tapped in, of course, with Northstar Politics. Myself, Noah East 9. The Mile End, Malcolm X. We didn't land on Bethnal Green. Bethnal Green landed on us. Different gravy, never lazy. Slimatar Herbatov live in the flesh. I am, of course, joined online by Sean Ramiz, the Enfield Eric Williams, DreamWorks Moses, let the people them go, Pharaoh. And a new name that someone dropped in the comments last week, Show Salah. I like that.
I can just start in 11. Come on, man.
Off the AFCON. See this? I knew you don't know ball.
Yeah, man. Anyways, what I got.
You were repping the Algeria kit a few weeks ago, so you're not watching for Egypt.
Well, yeah. No, do you know what it is? When you're just out here, just by yourself, it's a cozy season. You're not worrying about what's going on in the world too tough.
Still in Canada, snowed in.
Yeah, come on. I was gonna say, something that I saw online though. There's a new phrase we should definitely enter our lingos. Wagwan alaikum alaikum wagwan does them.
I know the guy you're talking about as well. The guy you're talking about, yeah, he's creating new slang every day.
Oh, it's so funny. That's literally
Modern day Shakespeare.
Yeah, for real.
I seen you know you got a slander name.
Slander?
Yeah, you know what a slander name is? It's a football Twitter thing. They'll come with like a footballer's name, but they'll change it to like something to slander them off or something.
Okay.
Someone called you Lord Farquhar Ibn Muhammad.
Oh, okay, nice. No, that's old school. If we want to bring up the names of hate we've got, I got something.
Yeah. What slander names you seen for me? Is there any good ones?
No. It's just saying, subhanallah, that head of yours. There must be a creator just to be, because that equilibrium there.
No, I need to see some funny slander names for me, yeah, because I haven't seen anything that caught my eye yet.
No. I mean, bro, when like I said, when you be doing this for a while, innit, like you can't really take it too tough. But speaking
because your TikTok career, you're a veteran in this.
Oh yeah, come on, man. I'm not new to this. I am true, but you know what? Speaking of slander, Basayo, because we dropped her clip a bit late, obviously in this kind of down period, around her let me land on thinking that like, it's a necessary evil to have Nigel Farage as Prime Minister. Them comments are crazy. Went off.
You know what it is, is obviously, so I edited that clip. And it's actually why are you laughing?
Obviously you edit. I'm a fair editor. When I edit clips, you're never going to be taken out of context, so carry on though.
But I mean the nature of it is like you just can't give full context to that. So I was trying my best to do what I could. But at the same time, like I knew that was going to fly off the rails because her take was just flaming.
Yeah. I mean, it is literally it's a hot take.
And I think as well, like that section we do, Let Me Land, you can't actually get the full context of what Let Me Land is.
Yeah,
if you clip, it's going to seem like it's your full, sincere opinion.
When I drop, at some point is that in this winter period, my Christian one, Rise of Political Christianity, I'll make sure you don't edit that and I'll edit it instead, just so I don't get so much.
If you let me edit that, we're going viral first week.
That's strange. But how are you?
That's the lag. That's the time lag. No, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. This past week has been quite restful. Some good cycling, sorting out Christmas presents for the family. Finished the book. Finished my Toni Morrison book. I'm delving back into some Dostoevsky.
With the little matcha in front of people to see.
No, it's not a performative thing. I actually, where I do my reading, this is in a cafe in Stockwell, like a Portuguese cafe, and it's so like I call it a dive cafe because it's like slot machines, people drinking beers in there at like 9 a.m. It's not aesthetic, it's not performative. I can't lie.
But you're a bit of a coffee snob, and does it have good coffee, or it does?
No, I'm not a coffee snob. Like my mum, she raised me, and she was a big coffee drinker, but she was on like just battering like Americano just to like wake ourselves up. So I'm not a coffee snob.
Okay, fair. I've become a coffee snob, and as a coffee snob, I've been struggling in Canada because, bro, they don't have good coffee here. It's crazy.
Is it like America where they do filter?
Yeah, it's like America, and when you go to so I was actually staying with some of my older aunties, which we'll speak about a bit later in the echo chamber. So my grandma's older sister, so like she's like 90, and another one's like 85. So I was taking care of them for like a week.
Mubarak.
Yeah, man. No, it was really, really special. But then in the morning, I'll just step out to go and get a little coffee or something, and I'm asking for a flat white. And if you know me, innit, I need to have the premium flat whites. Yeah, this though, bro, it's literally just from a machine, and you can't even taste the bitterness of the coffee. But yeah,
is there tipping culture in Canada?
There's a typical
What
culture
was
for
it?
Canadians. There ain't a typical culture for a man like me.
In
But
it,
yeah,
well,
there
like
is,
when you're a tourist, it's a cultural exchange thing, isn't it? Like you bring them
yeah.
your culture as well.
Exactly. You're blessed by my presence. So
Now,
that's
basically, if it comes from a machine, man can't be tipping. Do you know what I'm saying though, isn't it? Like,
no, for real. But yeah, that's been me basically for the last week. Just yeah, it's been very, very touching to kind of spend time with the old ladies. Because I just honestly feel like our old family members, obviously you talk about your grandma a lot as well, just sitting with them, they just have so much wisdom and so much accumulated experience over life where it doesn't, I don't know, us sort of brushing shoulders with like the smartest people in the world at Oxford versus brushing shoulders with probably our family members who are much older, haven't had like much, education. I find it so much more valuable just to sit and chat
oh,
with them.
definitely. Definitely.
Um,
Even like my thing when I go to my nan's, I always try to run her some music on the TV and
oh
just see what
yeah,
she thinks. So
yeah.
I sent you some videos in it, but last time I was there, I was showing her the Vibes Cartel emo song. But like, she's actually just
Um,
open minded. She's like there to listen to it. She's happy to listen to it. But then
so you
and
just
then
putting your
every now and
grammar
then,
through that, yeah. That's a good way to phrase. Like I'm just
no, but
talking
then
my grandma.
but then we'll round it off with like a song where I'm guessing that she might have heard it back in the day. So I sent you the video where she listened to Mighty Sparrow and them old sort of
Yeah,
Calypso
yeah, of
records, and
course.
she loves it. She said like, "How do you know about this?"
Yeah,
But no, I definitely agree. And as I said, like the echo chamber today, which we talking about like family stuff.
yeah.
But I want to say as well, shout out to the stars them that are locked in right now because you know you're snowed in with the boys. You're snowed in with Northstar. So do us the biggest favor, yeah. Before you even get into the state of play, you need to just like it on whatever platform you're listening on. Rate us on Spotify if you ain't rated us yet. Subscribe, comment as well. Our Q&A will be next week, the first time that you actually be able to unpack who are Noah and Sean on a deeper level. But shout out to you if you're locked in the winter season.
And yet, listen, Santa's not paying us a fair wage, man. We're exploited
Trust me.
laborers out here.
Just them
So
elves, them just working out.
so for real, like I mean, yeah, on behalf of both of us, we really appreciate the fact that people are even willing to kind of just tune in at this
And the
time.
growth's been mad. Like, because obviously me, Sean, yeah, cool. He had his TikTok before. Me, I was on private Instagram, like all that. You know what I mean? My voice wasn't even out there. So for me to see like this first foray into the social media realm and like what about to hit 10,000 on Instagram, 15,000 on TikTok, like hopefully 2K by the end of the year on YouTube. Like each week we're getting a clip that's doing like 100K. Bro, the dopamine overload for me has been mental. But it's just incredible to see that level of support, especially like the
Nah.
comments do more than like the likes, really. Because you're seeing people actually take time out of their day to like interact.
And even if it does get a bit heated in the comments, I think I would generally say that people are actually having good conversations, generally speaking. Like people are
But
actually trying to
sometimes
like,
even if they're not good, it's like they're having conversations rather than like shouting matches.
no, but that's what I mean. So I think
Okay, got you.
that's exactly kind of the sound kind of platform we want to build a North Star. And hopefully we
Yeah.
continue to do so, especially in 2026.
And before we get into the state of play, I want to shout out Aisha the first, not the second,
Is
because
it?
she's
Wow, we're
because
naming names out here.
no, but people actually like we were a bit delayed last week because our producer, who actually we're gonna be delayed again this week, innit? Because he just touched down in Chittagong. Shout out Tarek. But he like had like a problem with his car last week, so we were a day late, bro. She was in the DMs. No episode this week. Shout out you. Shout out
No,
you.
no, she's cool because I've seen her comments on the Spotify as well. So yeah, definitely really appreciate that. And that just goes to show we are reading these comments, guys. So we're gonna remember the
All the
names of
real
people who are
ones.
here right now. Here right
Trust
now.
me. Early
Um,
adopters, we will remember you when we go public.
for sure, for sure.
Should we get into the state of play?
Let's do it, man. Welcome back to the State of Play, where we're just gonna, if you're new here, this is basically where we do a breakdown on the current affairs this week and hot topics that you should definitely know about. So we're gonna start off with just a very brief update on the hunger strikers in UK prisons. So if you don't know, 8 pro-Palestine activists from Palestine Action are still on hunger strikes, and some are approaching day 50, making it one of the longest hunger strikes in UK history. And they're striking to protest their conditions. Because if you watch our episode last week, we go into the details of how we got to this situation. So now the mainstream media is actually finally reporting on the situation, and the government have actually finally responded. So Starmer claims rules and procedures were being followed after facing questions in the Commons about why ministers had actually refused to meet with them, striking in the first place. In particular, the strikers are focusing on David Lammy as the Justice Secretary as the point of accountability. And just to kind of reiterate what their demands are to end immediate bail, to end the ban on Palestine action and restriction on their communications, and also that Elbit Systems needs to be shut down. So yeah, that's just a little brief update. But Noah, any thoughts on that? We have the government finally responding.
No, I think honestly, this is a good example for people. When people talk about like awareness raising, there's something that actually there's been a concerted effort to raise awareness about. I know people probably saw that we put
Definitely.
out a clip a couple of weeks ago, really trying to raise awareness about this. And obviously, the work that NIDA and Palestine Action and different Palestine support groups have done, it's been sensational. And Zara Sultana, Jeremy Corbyn, all these sorts of people. It's been brilliant. Actually, last week when we spoke about Dr. Ayo, who was one of the he was supporting the protesters, who he actually got arrested that evening
Yeah.
for his support of the hunger strikers. But I think it's an interesting one, and I'm going to come with a bit more of a small c conservative take, perhaps. But I understand why the government is reticent to interact with the hunger strikers because of the precedent it sets for how accessible the government is. Because you can imagine, obviously, we think there's a worthy cause. Not that we support Palestine Action, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't get us taken off YouTube, but because if there's a precedent set that the government will meet and acquiesce to the demands of anyone who hunger strikes, then that could be leveraged by people whose perhaps their ideologies are not something that we on the within Northstar would support. So I think that is
That's
kind of interesting.
that is an interesting point to make. I do think though, my only pushback would be the willingness to hunger strike is not some easy thing. And so whatever like an individual might hunger strike for, that would probably likely be a case where it's something um, less trivial, less superficial, but something a bit deeper.
No, I
Um,
agree, but you can imagine there's things that are non-trivial that you think are like incredibly harmful.
Yeah, no, of course, it could be incredibly harmful, but, I think the ones that actually so I saw basically, I saw something interesting around I mean, it's in, like, some Twitter threads, some sort of discourse where so I don't know if it's true, but apparently a lot of people do hunger strike year on year, okay? And
Mm.
it does happen. But the distinction I would make is that through the public sphere, it's actually us who are able to legitimize what hunger strikes are good and bad, and so it's actually our support that we throw behind it that basically makes it such a big thing. So I wouldn't
So
say
I
that
agree on that point.
yeah, no, so then that I think that's basically the kind of arbiter of when a government should actually, step forward and actually, take these things seriously because ultimately, like, especially with the Palestine Action lot, because of that kind of terrorist prescription and because the fact that they haven't even had proper trials, it's as if like the only thing they have left to do is literally to strike. And let's be frank, 50 days as well. The amount of like kind of sheer willpower it's taken some of these young
It's incredible.
people, um, I think it shows that this is quite like a deeper commitment to justice.
No, I agree. I think it's, but I agree in what you say that the mechanism is through
Us, yeah,
raising awareness to wider people to then pressurize the government rather than just purely a call and response between hunger striking and government access. I think as well, the thing that people should always be aware of, the crux of this is that prescription of Palestine Action as a terrorist group. And
yeah,
at the time, when MPs were discussing this, the big problem is that it was seen that the government was leveraging the legal framework we have around terrorism to apply to civilly disobedient groups who they simply disagreed with, to
yeah,
try and tar their movement, tar their ideology under the same brush as like horrible terrorist groups or horrible. Like at the same when the bill was passed, actually, they strategically passed a bill that had Palestine Action as part of other groups, including like a neo-Nazi European
yeah, yeah,
fascist
yeah,
group,
yeah,
so that it was hard for MPs to like legitimately abstain. I think that really ends up being the crux of it to observe how the government, and we even see this now with the government postponing elections and even not denying that they will postpone a general election, utilizing the leverage of the frameworks we have within the British legal structure politically rather than sort of ideologically, rather than actually honestly and sincerely.
yeah. And that actually is a good segue into the next topic I want to bring up because it touches on this tension that we have in British politics, which what you're basically, I guess, alluding to is this kind of uncodified, codified constitution business where, you have some sort of social contract or social fabric, and really the way parliamentary sovereignty works is that it's really just up to the arbitrary will of whichever parliament's in power to change
I
things.
mean, even if we had the time, I might even want to color that in a little bit for our audience. 'Cause I think there's something that's so
Yeah. Go ahead.
misunderstood
Yeah.
by Britain, especially as we become more Americanized. I don't know if you've seen, but like there was like that statistical report on the amount of the change in the way that MPs addressed Parliament after the advent of ChatGPT, because they were using ChatGPT to write their speeches, and it defaulted to
And
House
the
of
data
Congress.
trained. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
so they're using Americanisms all the time. But I say that to say this: in America, they have a constitution, and the way that a constitutional parliament or constitutional government works is that the constitution is supreme. Everything falls underneath that, such that sovereignty or the ultimate power, the ultimate autonomy of the government of the state is sort of aligning itself with the constitution. That's why you see all the time the Supreme Court is trying to work out, is this constitutional, is this not? Because if this law is anti-constitutional, then it cannot be passed. If this law is within the constitution, then it can be passed. Whereas, and there's who's it called? Is it Beige or one of these scholars says essentially the UK never had a constitutional moment, in part because we're the ones who create constitutional moments. And by constitutional moment, I mean like a fight for independence, a civil war, these sorts of things, which like gives the forefathers at the time the authority within the long history of a country to be like, this is where the country begins. These are the ideologies that set up the country. And because the UK is normally the ones that create independence movements rather than having their own, we've never had a constitutional moment. So the UK has what's called an uncodified constitution, where we have this evolution and development of documents really from about the Magna Carta to now, which has kind of developed a system whereby there is constraint on the monarchy and enfranchisement of the broad populace and these sorts of things. But in reality, the sovereign, the supreme authority is the legislature who creates laws, which is parliament. And to be sovereign means you cannot be constrained by any other powers within that state. You are the state, you are sovereign. So this means for the UK that no parliament can constrain a future parliament or be constrained by a previous one, such that a parliament at any given time, if they can get enough support from their members, can pass whatever law they want.
Yeah. And the key thing, yeah, definitely. And the key thing is that fundamental difference that we have with America versus us is that it's really, really hard to change the constitution in America. I can't remember what the stats are, but you're going to need something like 2/3 of
The
Congress to agree
supermajority,
on
yeah.
it, and then 3/4 of the state legislators as well, compared to us. So ultimately, to be very reductive, the UK system is kind of just based on like promises and just like a kind of general.
I think Bejo as well calls it the efficient secret.
Yeah. It's really just like a sort of, it really comes down to basically a cultural thing, and that's obviously why Beirut says we never had a constitutional moment. So speaking of then, Aaron Bastani, co-founder of Novara Media, probably the largest left-wing organization in the country, has called for now, has called to scrap the Equality and Human Rights Commission, a view which is actually adopted by those on the far right. So the EHRC, right, and don't get confused with the acronyms here, people, is an independent statutory body, also known as a Quango, whose role is to promote and enforce equality and human rights under the Equality Act 2010 and the Human Rights Act. So, Dr. Mary Ann Stevenson is the new chair of the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And the big controversy is that she recently warned against what she described as the demonization of migrants. She said that portraying migration as a major risk to Britain can make life feel not only more difficult for migrants, but also ethnic minority British citizens. She also argued that leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR, okay, would be a mistake. So her comments actually mark a shift from her predecessor, Baroness Faulkner, who basically was just a person who warned that integration in Britain was failing. So critics like Nigel Farage and Aaron Bastani argue that Dr. Stevenson's comments on migration go beyond the EHRC's role as a neutral regulator and risk aligning the Commission with a particular political position rather than strictly enforcing existing law. So, Noah, which side are you on?
No, I
The
think it is interesting because Quango, which is a quasi non-governmental organization, they fall foul of one of the problems that is sort of endemic within the civil service, which is ideological capture. Because obviously these are meant to be independent, impartial bodies and agents, but in fact these are humans who have their own political aspirations and political beliefs. So I think there's something that Quangos or government agencies need to be so wary of, especially when you see a lot of the narrative in the far right being two-state policing, or that they're captured by leftists, or these sorts of things to try and inflame their support base. As far as what Dr. Marianne Stevenson said, I think in the UK, in the Equalities Act, we have what's called protected characteristics, So gender, race, religion, these sorts of things. Being a migrant isn't a protected characteristic. So if they're persecuted in their capacity as an ethnic minority, then that would violate the Equalities Act. But if they're sort of infringed upon or discriminated against in their capacity as a migrant, that isn't necessarily so. I don't believe. So I think I agree with Aaron on that sense, and big shout out to Aaron Bastani because he does tread the line a lot between sort of the left wing stereotype and actual his sincere beliefs.
Yeah,
And I
I
think it's
mean,
really important.
one of the inside jokes we have is that obviously he had a kid a couple years back, and then he just thought all this left wing nonsense, got to lock in, just become conservative.
Yeah.
We've got to just protect my kid.
Which is funny
Um,
because at the time he wrote like an article basically saying, "Oh, I've had a kid, and being like a centrist dad makes no even less sense to me." But give it a couple years.
Yeah, I think there is an interesting tension. I think on the one hand, it's good that we should allow for the plurality of opinion to exist on the left, so to speak. On the other hand, the notion that we need to therefore scrap the EHRC feels a bit of a stretch to me. I don't think that's necessarily like the right solution to this because look, ultimately, there's always going to, whenever you have these institutions that I guess pretend or try to be neutral or impartial, there are going to be shortcomings because I mean we always talk about it all the time. Neutrality and impartiality literally doesn't exist, and I think in a time where the Overton window has shifted so much, where now the sort of general consensus in the country is that this kind of migration thing is bad. We need to get a hold on it. This is the kind of perennial endemic problem of our country. Then having an opinion or having a body which basically kind of just tries to reestablish or reaffirm that I guess cultural notion or cultural commitment to equalities and human rights, I think is still important. But then, therefore, because the Overton window has shifted so much, it feels as it's not become partial anymore,
It feels,
um,
yeah,
or impartial anymore. Sorry. So
you.
I don't know. I'm a bit uneasy with it because on the one hand, I see the importance of having an institution like this because in the absence of a codified constitution, what else can really uphold, our social fabric and our social contract? Is it really just always going to be up to the sort of arbitration of however the country's feeling at a certain point in time? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying, but then it's also what she's saying is logically true. Like
Yeah.
the depiction of migrants, and there's a difference between denotation and connotation, and both me and yourself will understand that when people are leveraging their insults or sort of scaremongering, fearmongering around migrants, perhaps some of it is like firmly rooted in like material economics and politics, but also part of it is rooted in their perspective on ethnic minorities. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she is right in what she says logically that the depictions of migrants do impact ethnic minorities who perhaps even born here. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard sometimes to say how far upstream can one look for impact. Because, for example, then does the depiction on British media of countries, perhaps in the global south, should that be considered a violation of the ECHR because it has a tangible or logical impact downstream on ethnic minorities in the UK, for example, like Jamie Carragher violating AFCON? Like,
Mm.
is he now liable for any sort of unseriousness levied at African applicants to jobs? Because on the margin, that does seem like a logical implication. But in reality, like, can we tangibly tie those two things together? So I get what she's saying, but I wonder if it's more a question of remit.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and also it comes back to the kind of age-old debate as well around why do these kind of unelected um, influences have any sort or unelected officials have any sort of influence in our politics, which is basically what Bastani was saying. I actually don't quite like because he was on GB News talking about. Obviously, he was on GB News. He's never on Navarre anymore. He's just on GB News.
These guys from Navarre, yeah, they've got a season ticket at GB News.
I know. I mean, I think it's actually a good thing, just because it's good to kind of have a dissenting opinion on a platform like that. But anyways, um,
Now they need to come on Northstar.
that's facts. But he mentioned, and she's on £69,000. It's like, bro, let's not do this race to the bottom politics, yeah, because I don't
Yeah,
know, like her salary has to do with any of this. And also, yeah, I think sometimes because it does feel like we are losing the battle, we are losing the conversation on migration, so to speak. It feels like we have to acquiesce to a lot of the demands
yeah,
that the far right or the right are having, just because for the sake of democracy. But at the same time, um, there for some of us, we believe in truth. We believe in a social order being based on our equality and human rights. And so I feel like sometimes we need to kind of be quite firm in our positions and not feel as if we need to kind of bend the knee, so to speak, to these lot. But yeah,
No, I
maybe
agree.
for all of you listening at home, what do you think? Yeah.
Are you rating the ECHR?
Yes, of course I am. Obviously, people saying that they have there's a sort of exploitative act in it. I don't know which one it is, where or one of the articles where it therefore means that anyone who comes over can claim asylum and these sorts of things. But ultimately, it it has stood the test of time in the sense that it has guaranteed all of our human rights. And I don't mind the fact that there's some sort of checks and balances on our sort of decision making with the European Convention of Human Rights. So I think it's very important. I think that once we decide to scrap that, or if it is scrapped, it's a dangerous slippery slope. And me, maybe this is my small c conservative view, because I actually think small c conservatism would be like true small c conservatism would be in favor of things like the ECHR, where you actually need to have some sort of codifying of core values that everyone kind of basically agrees on. Otherwise, what really we're calling for, again, and we've kind of alluded to it before, is a rearticulation of British values. What does it mean to be British? The social fabric. And I don't want that to be done by the likes of Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef, because ultimately you've got to call it out for what it is. It's hateful sometimes.
No, precisely. And if we go back to the start of this topic, we spoke about the idea of parliamentary sovereignty and the uncodified constitution. Without things like the ECHR and other international bodies, Britain is not uniquely, but especially susceptible to falling into sort of tyranny of the masses, which is one of the fatal flaws of democracy because we don't have a codified constitution.
Yeah, and another little political philosophy thing, just to throw in there,
Which is
that
little sprinkles, little bit of
this little
seasoning.
sprinkle is it's called an elective dictatorship by philosophers. But moving
Back in
on,
the back in the day, Sean was a
yeah,
good PPE student,
back in the day, not anymore.
People even try to get onto us for that, Someone recommended Northstar on one of their TikToks, and like someone that you listen to, people in the comments
Yeah,
saying, "Oh, didn't they both do the same degree as all of the prime ministers?" So
and
yeah,
so what? So no, just drop. How many A stars did you get at GCSE and A level?
yeah, 12, young 12,
In it,
as
well,
in
yeah,
as
same.
in
12,
yeah, but
13.
also it's like
You know what I mean?
also
So
it's
is that
like
all right? My bad for studying hard. My bad, innit? Like,
but I get what they're saying, but it's like it's not a logical entailment. Like there is a problem with like the what we call it, like intellectual homogeneity of Britain. But I don't think that means that if you happen to have done a similar academic path, that your total intellectual sort of channel of thinking is
as in,
defined by that.
you're not destined to be one of those. As in,
Yeah,
guys,
because I wouldn't say my intellectual thinking is actually in large part defined by the degree I did.
no, 100%. As in, you're grounded in sort of like the kind of historical studies of it. But guys, I literally became a Muslim after my time at university. Like, I went down a different path. Like, no
Yeah,
way
same.
would PPE ever let me, or any sort of PPE intellectual elite ever let me do that. Um, so big news this week for the world. Obviously, it's based in America. Is
Redacted,
that
redacted, whole section redacted.
is that the Epstein files have released, and my hot take is that I think this is going to be it, well, this is not really a hot take anymore, but this must be the beginning of the end for Trump. So just to give a summary for the viewers at home, a new law recently passed by Congress, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, has required the DOJ, the Department of Justice, to begin to release thousands of photos and materials online related to Jeffrey Epstein in redacted batches. So images of minors and victims are blurred, and shockingly, you can literally still see some of like the literal children next to Epstein, which kind of makes me sick when I'm even speaking about it. High profile people have been shown though. So Bill Clinton, Chris Tucker. I'm a big Rush Hour fan, so that hit me hard. Noam Chomsky, which is we'll talk about that in just a bit. And for
Michael
those,
Jackson,
well, Michael Jackson.
Diana Ross.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but people knew about those bits before. The backlash, though, is that these files are way too limited and redacted. hard to access any meaningful information, and also hundreds of thousands of pages actually still remain unreleased. And so overall, it's a slow and very incomplete release, and it's unclear. The DOJ are very unclear about future releases, and apparently there's evidence that they've actually even redacted Donald Trump's name numerous times. Noah, where do we start with all of this?
It stars them. I'm gonna let you in on something. All right. Friday, they released the Epstein files. Timothy Chalamet done a song with SD Kid, and the US military bombed 70 sites in Syria. Please, please stay woke. Stay woke. They don't want you to think about this. The US bombed 70 sites in Syria, yeah, mass military attacks on Friday, and it didn't even hit the headlines because a heavily redacted Epstein file selection dropped that only really villainizes Bill Clinton.
And all the man them were just screaming about Marty Supreme, wake up. Well, I feel like
Wake
Jaden
up.
Smith. I just be like Jaden Smith. Let's just talk about the political and economic state of the world. But
But bro, like,
yeah,
as in, this Epstein file thing, like, I'll bring people back to that. I referenced it before in the podcast, the Adam Curtis documentary. I don't know if it's still on BBC iPlayer. I pay my TV license, called Hypernormalization. The fact that the Epstein files has become like a meme online and something that people kind of joke around and
it's
use for
damaging.
political
It's
point
so
scoring,
damaging. Yeah,
beyond damaging, it's actually insane. It's actually absurd that, like, the US, like citizens of the US aren't threatening like a general strike or like an attack on Congress. If this needs to be released in full.
yeah.
Like, and not that I'm not trying to incite violence or like people march on the Capitol, but I'm surprised that they're not doing that because this is bonkers.
Well, I think what we're going to see is that, I mean, there has to be some sort of inevitable release and exposure of Donald Trump. And
Does there?
well, the reason why I say that is because the way these political agents and actors work is that this Trump cult that has existed for the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, will start to realize that actually this can be the nail in the coffin. And so we'll speak about it after this topic. Now we'll speak about it in just a bit, but I reckon what's going to happen is that once all of that information publicly comes out, obviously there's going to be condemning of Donald Trump, and so JD Vance, the sort of Luke Skywalker of the right, is going to just step forward and actually just take the reins, and that's because political
With his
agents,
new gal.
yeah, with his new gal Erika Kirk, but um, the way political agents work and the best way to actually always kind of model them is like through a rationalist theory. So they're self-interested. They try and get as much knowledge as possible around, like, other people's moves, etc. And so I mean, yeah, game theory would say that ultimately the dominant strategy of all of this is just to condemn Donald Trump, put him by the wayside, and actually a new person to step forward. And what we're already seeing is some sort of posturing to do so. I kind of want to also focus on the fact that Noam Chomsky as well, someone who's one of the biggest public intellectuals on the left wing, is also just photographed with Epstein everywhere.
But even more pertinently, he's always been like a vocal critic of sort of government capture by the elite and power
Yeah.
structures. So it's
Yeah.
just like,
Well, what was
when I saw that drop, I
manufactured
was thinking
consent,
like,
right? That's the thing that he
yeah,
coined. Yeah.
yeah. I was thinking, as in, I don't think I processed this fully because it is just so absurd. Is the
Yeah.
best word I can come to find it. And the fact that it's so normalized is even more like doubly absurd in the sense
And
of I don't understand what's going on.
yeah, no, for sure. And a conversation that we brought up before, which I wanna just to get some views from the stars them on, is what is going on with the rich, powerful people and then their sort of indulgence in the pedophilic behavior? Because this is something that happens across history, right? Like rich, powerful elites just absolutely indulge in some sort of hedonistic, animalistic desires. Um,
Could you not also say that like humans do this at every level of society, but those that have greater access do it at a far greater scale?
No, I completely agree, for sure. But then I suppose that one would expect that the reason why we feel shocked, for example, by someone like Chomsky is that for someone to reach that level, I guess maybe we have the false assumption, or we're falsely presupposing that he would have some sort of, uh, I guess, responsibility, dignity,
I mean,
self-respect to not do something like this.
even people in the UK who are feeling like, oh, we're removed from this, and there isn't we're our taxes are literally still paying for the lavish lifestyle of the perspiring prince. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's absolutely it covers all sections of society, especially when you think about a globalist elite. It covers multiple different countries, a lot of international prime ministers and presidents involved in this. And I just think, like, I don't know how many listeners we've got in the US, but you might need to rise up something and just make
I
these
know,
files drop because
but I think that
it's crazy.
and something like this should be something that's able to actually galvanize both people across
Yeah,
political
it's like if this isn't the thing, like what is? Like
spectrum.
that's actually something to think about. It's like what could actually like harness like a broad swathe of support among the masses to like threaten the government apart from
Yeah,
like if not
yeah.
this.
But what one interesting thing as well that I want to add before we wrap this topic up is that Bill Clinton actually released a statement, right? And his statement is so well, it's not funny because obviously I don't rate him, yeah. But this is basically what he says. Let me just read it out. Okay.
Okay.
The Epstein Files Transparency Act imposes a clear legal duty on the US Department of Justice to produce the full and complete record the public demands and deserves. However, what the Department of Justice has released so far and the manner in which it did so makes one thing clear. Someone or something is being protected. We do not know whom, what, or why, but we do know this. We need no such protection. So that's just the first part. Bill
Facts
Clinton,
though.
I don't, but he's doing the game of chicken and he's throwing out
No, facts.
the wheel.
That's
He's saying to Trump, you know what? Yeah, if I'm going down, you're going down with me. This is
no, but
mad.
that's correct though. What he's saying is correct. Like, there's clearly been selective. Also, like the regulations around the Transparency Act that only victims could have
Yeah,
their faces censored,
all minors. Yeah,
or your victims are minors. But then they're censoring. Obviously, this sounds trivial, but they're censoring one of the what's the word? One of the assaulters or one of the people that perpetrated the acts. Her like private parts were showing, and they've censored that, which is literally just illegal. So they're just doing things to like protect
you're
these
talking
powerful
about
people's image.
what Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah, but then there was also things where it's like there's grown adults who are having their faces covered and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's really strange, but yeah, if this is not the thing that sort of, I don't know, creates a sort of civil war in the US, then I don't know what will.
Right, literally.
But speaking of civil wars, there has been a civil war on the American right for a long time now, and I think this is important to cover because so much of the politics in America influences the rest of the world, especially the right. So Erika Kirk, who is the widow of Charlie Kirk, recently held the first Turning Point USA annual youth conference in Phoenix, Arizona. Turning Point USA is the organization that Charlie Kirk founded, and it's the biggest youth conservative organization in the USA. But tensions arose when Ben Shapiro, who's founder of a right-wing media company called The Daily Wire, and a very famous kind of online, I guess, intellectual or right-wing debater, called out Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson for sowing division on the right and falling into conspiracy theories. So Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are also other right-wing journalists. So the interesting thing is that all of them, right, across the whole theme of it, right, is preaching America first. America needs to come first. But this civil war on the American right is really just about Israel. So Ben Shapiro, he's a Jewish American guy, but he's also a very staunch pro Israeli advocate.
For people that
Uh,
might not recognize him, he's the one that talks fast with the nasal voice.
is it? So, but okay, did you like inherit some traits from him? The talk fast, not the nasal voice though, but the
Nah, people say I talk fast, but I didn't get the nasal voice. He's the one. Facts don't care about your feelings. That guy.
yeah, and look, all of them are coming together to actually support JD Vance to be the next president. But it's a very interesting question. Where is the American right going to go? Which direction is it actually heading in? Because this sort of internal domestic call to decouple from Israel could, on the whole, be a very good thing for politics generally speaking. But then again, of course, the likes of Tucker Carlson, the likes of Candace Owens still obviously hold very problematic views. So no
Yeah.
thoughts.
So, I mean, I've got a very important question to start with. So you think about people on the think about people on the right, be it the UK or the US. So Tucker Carlson, Nigel Farage, Candace Owens. I don't even know who else is on the right in the UK. Nothing comes to mind right now. Tommy Robinson. Do you think any of them bench press more than the Northstar boys? Like, the real question, because you're all about this, Guns and Fury and like America, like, but like, do you think any of them bench more than the man them?
Impossible.
Impossible. Okay, cool. So that's just so it's on the we understand what
But
angle we're
even
taking
like,
from here.
you know, us, we're not even on like just superficial bench press metrics. We're on squats, we're on deadlifts,
Yeah, running.
leg will be strong. Yeah.
You know, because one day in it, yeah, it'll be like we'll do a left wing media politics sports day, and we'll see we'll see who's really on what. but that would do numbers.
We're just smoke
I,
everyone though. But that,
you think so,
bro, obviously we'll smoke everyone on the sports day. Like it's not even
bro? I feel like Michael Walker. I think he's a bit of an athlete. Ash Sarkar kicks ball. I think.
okay.
I can't think of who else.
I ain't seen footy that
Bro, the guy from Think Twice, the philosophy podcast. He went to my. I told you about him. He went to my school 5 years above. Legendary rugby player. Went pro.
Oh yeah,
You're not
well,
actually. Yeah, you're not
can
chatting.
outrage
You're
us,
not.
but
Yeah. He can bench both of us.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But sorry for the diatribe, but um, I think the Israel point in the American right is insane. Like I don't really. I'm not in that algorithm. You know, Sean's deeply in the right wing, far right algorithm, so he understands a lot of what's going on here. But me, I'm not in that algorithm
For
as much.
educational
So
purposes, may I add.
so I'm not as cognizant of the divide here, but it seems that it's the classic tale of who has their material interest impacted by which sort of political ideology. So if you have material interests aligned with Israel, they seem to be trying to foment the ideology of Israel, and if not, then not. And I think the Tucker Carlson one's a bit strange because he had that long interview with Putin. I think Candace Owen is probably, I don't know, she seems somewhat sincere in the sense of she's actually
Yeah.
saying what she believes
No, she
rather
is.
than she's in the pocket of someone.
No, I think so.
Um,
Yeah. So
but I
interesting
also
background.
think that,
Yeah. Okay.
go
Right.
ahead.
No, finish your point. It's okay.
But I also going to say that there's a secondary thing I wanted to talk about, which is like a lot of these talking heads sort of violently unimpressive.
Mm.
And I remember I mentioned this to you when we were chatting a few weeks ago about the Nick Fuentes interview with Piers Morgan. And I'd heard about this Nick Fuentes guy for ages, like this massive, like a neo sort of, let's see, a neo-Nazi,
Yeah, and
allegedly.
for context, Nick Fuentes is so far right that all of these figures disavow him and condemn
Yeah.
him, etc. Carry on.
And he had like a 2 hour interview with Piers Morgan. I was thinking, let me actually watch this guy for the first time. And I was thinking this is going to be impressive because he's got such a big following. It was so unimpressive. There was no sort of intellectual vigor or rigor or anything like that. There was no sort of fervent argumentation or anything like that. It wasn't even like a level of sharp-witted response.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it just shows you though that I mean, it's not really necessary talent that gets people to where they do. It's kind of just being able to kind of articulate things that people want to hear. And also, I think Nick Fuentes says things which touches people deep in like the kind of darker pits of their souls and kind of brings that to life a bit. And because he's so um confident in saying it, people are attracted to it. I think if I were to fall on what side do I sort of agree with most on this kind of right-wing conservatism point or right-wing conservative civil war, I mean, obviously it's going to be the likes of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson because it seems to me it seems so like logically sound that if you're saying America first, of course you want to have the exclusion of any sort of a foreign influence in your politics. And the fact that Daily Wire has such a monopoly on American conservatism in the US makes absolutely no sense to me because they quite literally are funded by Israel. They quite literally are, or allegedly are funded by Israel. I don't know. Hopefully, we don't get sued for that. Are quite literally, in favor of like this genocide that been seeing and also Israel's influence on American politics. And the way they justify it is by saying that, oh, Israel's is greatest ally. It's the best thing to kind of, fight against the rise of Islamic extremism, which is the real kind of perennial threat.
That's their real problem, yeah.
Yeah, but the real perennial threat to American civilization. And so I think the reason why people can't really pin down Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson is because, dare I say it, I think they are probably a bit more consistent in their conservative principles. Because actually, people need to realize that small c conservatism is very anti-war. Like that's the thing that people don't really get. Like what we're seeing from Ben Shapiro and the other likes of a kind of neoliberal, neoconservatism, neo-imperialism that they believe in, where they're happy to send your sons and daughters out to war to fight for some sort of, I don't know, next notion.
To fight on behalf of Israel, really.
Yeah, to fight on behalf of Israel. But Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, who, by the way, well, Candace Owens used to actually work for Ben Shapiro before she got dropped, for actually speaking out against Israel, are actually very different. They still have problematic views in the sense that they see migration, like, immigrants and migrants as like some sort of other alien. But it's very interesting.
A broken clock's right twice a day, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. But I think it is kind of, to some extent, refreshing to see people who are actually consistent in their worldview. Because for me, Israel's always been the litmus test. If you can't disagree with what they're doing, then you're actually too far gone.
Yeah.
I can actually probably sit down and have a reasoned debate with the likes of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, but the likes of Ben Shapiro, I'm sorry, but I just see him as evil. Simple as that.
Mm.
Yes. Um, so who knows?
Should get
And
on
also,
some nicer stuff on the echo chamber because it's been a horrific state of play.
yeah. No, we'll definitely do some nicer stuff. But all I want to say before we kind of get into family, Erika Kirk, your husband just got smoked. You never looked happier, my boy. Oh my gosh, it's
Bro,
so
sat with
mad.
Nicki Minaj, flares going off. I thought they were in Tape or Club Live. Hey,
Uh,
hey, hey, I thought Bottles was gonna come. Bro, it's like you're watching this thinking this is a movie. Like this cannot be real life.
uh, it's baffling. But yeah, let's
Bro,
get
all
into
this Nicki
it.
Minaj stuff as well. People listen, I've been Bardi gang. I've never been rocking with Nicki Minaj like that. I thought
I
she's
actually
broke
have
up
been
the other
rocking with Nicki
day.
Minaj, man. I know the super big rap because I got an older sister and she's from Trinidad, but it's actually just a shame.
Don't worry about your older sister. Just say
Uh,
you know the super bass rap, bro. Nah, but Bardi
ah,
gang for life, man. Should we get into the echo chamber?
let's do it, man. Welcome back to the Echo Chamber, and this is where myself and Noah will just riff, maybe do a little bit of ping-ponging around an idea that we have, and we kind of just want to work it out in real time. So my thing I want to bring up in the Echo Chamber is, how do we actually have the preservation of the family unit? So a lot of the time when we hear about the family unit in our politics, it's really the right wing which bring it up a lot. So the way they kind of bring it up is that, oh, the core kind of unit of society is the family. We need to preserve it, and a lot of that discourse is used to actually perhaps undermine a lot of kind of personal freedoms, such as the rights of the LGBTQ plus community, etc. And so typically how people talk about the family unit is that these two things are kind of diametrically opposed, which I hope to kind of actually show today with, that that's not necessarily the case. And the reason why I want to bring it up is because in the last week I spent time to kind of basically taking care of my late grandma's sisters. So my auntie Bibby, my auntie June, shout out to them. They're not going to be watching, of course.
Big
Uh,
up, big up.
and they are the sweetest ladies, they're very gentle. They've done so much for, raising the kind of wider family as well. So all of my, like, younger aunties, et cetera, they were like the second mums. They did so much to kind of contribute to them, et cetera. But the sad thing that I saw is that they're starting to actually show maybe some signs of early memory loss and maybe, God forbid, Alzheimer's or dementia. And that's the thing my grandma passed away with. That's also the thing that I kind of cared for her for as well, because I was a bit of a young carer in my sixth form days. And, it kind of made me feel a bit helpless, because I feel like if it was this back in Trinidad, yeah, and this was happening, what we need right now is like some sort of carer to come and check them, make sure to give them their tablets, etc. Someone from the community could have just done that. Someone, you could have just called up a friend to be like, oh, who's free on what days? Can you just come in and check up on my auntie? But now when I'm speaking to my uncles here and stuff, well, we don't really have access to that anymore because we live in the big city, an urbanized country. And so people are so sporadically placed, people are very atomized, people have their own sort of sense of inwardness. And so there's not that space to actually, interact with family anymore. It's only really around Christmas time, which is now, or another holiday that people come together. But family is something that's, really just kind of constrained to the immediate. And then beyond that, there's not really a greater sense of it anymore. And I actually think that, for a variety of reasons, including the ones that I just kind of spoke about, is that modernity has really not preserved the family unit in a meaningful way anymore. And the rise of kind of modern individualism and atomism it's really bad for, like, our wider society, because it means that, you know, that kind of social community or social fabric where people can feel taken care of um, is kind of evaporating in front of our eyes. And it's the reason why in the UK, for example, there's a loneliness epidemic. So many old people die because no one just literally checks on them. And I wonder how the left can actually reclaim this conversation, because I still hold deeply, and maybe this is my small c conservative views, if you want to call it that the family unit is the most important kind of core unit to society. That is society centered around the family, not the individual. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think what you're saying is in any way conservative. I think it is very fundamentally left wing and communitarian because what you're looking for is the preservation of a key node of community spirit and community engagement.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to understand why we've seen infringements and violations of the family unit is because the logic of modernity, the logic of capitalism cannot sustain the family. It doesn't make it's not rational within
Yeah.
that framework. So take, for example, families, the benefit of families living near one another. Well, that can't be rationalized within like a rentier economy whereby people who have different earning capacity necessarily have to live in different sections of society or need to live close to where they work and their work is totally split up geographically because of rent sort of extraction. So it can't be rationalized in that sense. Even the ability of families to convene in regular intervals is not rationalized in a in a society where people are pushed to their limits to be working consistently and constantly. So I think what you're describing there is very fundamental to left wing politics in the sense of we need to reorient the logic of society around those things we actually value rather than purely around the pursuit of profit and capital.
No, definitely. And I think it's really good the way you kind of articulated that. But I do wonder why then that we don't really I feel like we don't really see it. Maybe I'm straw manning, but I don't really see people on the left or figures on the left privilege the family unit or privilege the importance of having a family unit.
I think it's
Well,
hard
not having a
because
family unit, but being so
no,
core.
no, I agree. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's also kind of hard because within a lot of left wing philosophy is the understanding that a lot of injustice has been promoted historically through this distinction between the private and the public.
Mm,
And in that way, the political is part of the public realm. So you have like classic feminist literature around the idea that no matter whether you sort of enfranchise women in the public sphere, if misogynistic or sexist tropes are perpetuated within the private sphere, then you'll see that perpetuation throughout society, no matter what, whether you give the women the vote or whatever it might be. So I think there is that historical lineage of left wing politics to try and sort of blur the lines between the private and the public. But I think that's okay if the public is oriented around the community. If you
mm,
get what I'm saying, if the
yeah.
public is vehemently individualist and atomized, then as a left wing person, if you try to say that there is sort of that the private is political, then that opening of the private into the political becomes an individualization of the private sphere of the family unit. Whereas if we are of a public and political environment that is communitarian, then there becomes less of a threat to the family unit if we are to address the sort of arbitrary delineation between private and public.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I think as well, like it's something interesting you said about the logical modernity doesn't lend itself to actually rationalize commitment to the family. I think is very spot on. But I also think that there actually is internal logics within a sort of like kind of secular left wing understanding of the world, which also doesn't really lend itself to the preservation of the family because yes, it does preach around fraternity, solidarity, and community. Because now if we take it back even to first principles, we'll talk about human nature, right? And clearly people can feel some sort of intuitive kind of pull and attraction and desire to kind of take care of their families. But I feel as if that the reason why perhaps like the Muslim communities or even the Christian communities or the Sikh communities, etc., can actually preserve the notions of the families and that privilege it so much is because those worldviews are actually ones which lend itself better to understanding that actually the family is something quite sacred. So above all else, we need to privilege this first and foremost. Whereas I think on the left, you know, because of like the very materialist assumptions about how the world is being created or the materialist understandings of history, etc., it means that if we really are just kind of animals, right? If that's really what we are, if there's no soul, right? If there's no sort of like any sort of something within some sort of mystic or mysteriousness that actually lends itself to, me having an affinity for you as my brother or my grandparents, etc., then how can you really even rationalize, having commitment to the family in the first place? I feel like that's why as well, we're living in this age now where again modernity has taken a very kind of right wing stance or capitalist stance because it's a logical entailment, if that makes
I
sense.
think, I agree. And I think it's also important to work out what it is that we value about the family.
Mm,
Because if historically, let's take it even prior to the advent of capitalism, the family has been a locus for the development of sort of sexist patterns or even sort of harmful patterns of behavior in the public sphere, it becomes quite easy for the secular left wing to critique the family. But then when you
Yeah.
give those examples of sort of the Muslim or the Christian household, where maybe like the family isn't an economic unit for the generational wealth being passed down, but rather a unit of, and what I see the family for inherently is like a locus for information to be passed down and for principles to be passed down. Then if we can center that as the role of the family, it becomes easier within the secular left wing for us to be more accepting of this.
So it's about, that makes sense. So kind of changing the dynamics of how we see why the family is useful in the first.
No, exactly. But I think it's interesting, and as always, like stars them, get in the comments, because the echo chamber, you're part of it now. Like, let us know what you think about it, because I think it is an interesting topic. Like the family is normally leveraged along right-wing lines to be like a private sphere of sort of masculine domination that's being infringed upon by like an overreaching government.
And I
It doesn't
think,
need to be that.
and we won't get into it too much now because we don't want to go for too long, but that is a very degenerate understanding of the family as well. So I think we don't have a...
As in, I'm in a similar boat to you, where like my family, pure matriarchy.
Yeah.
My mum had like 4 sisters.
I feel like it's a very Caribbean. I feel like a very Caribbean thing because all our men just leaving anyways. So
I mean,
facts though, you got to call it as it is, man. Like it's a bit of
life.
an epidemic in the Caribbean community. But
real life. But isn't me and Sean both raised by like strong Caribbean women? Like, but then my family's also there was just bare sisters going on. Like not many. There was actually also wasn't that many brothers. So like my nan, like it was only her and her sister who came to London. Like her brother stayed back in Dominica. And then my nan had like 4 daughters.
Yeah, man, fairs. Yeah, my grandma had like 5 sisters. So there you go.
Exactly. So I don't know what that is.
But just touching on the sort of closing remark of the family, are you looking forward to Christmas? Obviously, your family celebrate it. You come around every year.
Yeah, Christmas with my family is good, man. Like I was raised strict Catholic, and my family, they do Christmas well. So just food, yam, walk with the cousins, all that kind of stuff. Like, the food we're yamming, like, come on, rice and peas is there, salmon, dip on deck, mac and cheese, oxtail stew, all the good. And there'll be a turkey there, but it's like turkey's kind of, it's over Dessa, isn't it? Where we don't, like, if you want to grab some for the look, then you can do that. But there's other things to be for prioritizing.
That's real. Well, start them. Enjoy, obviously, Christmas with your families. And
the festive period, because I know we've got a lot of, we got a lot.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of Muslims.
The winter period, isn't it?
It's enjoy the period of 2 months before Ramadan for the Muslims. How about
that? Eyes on Ramadan. But as always, literally, we are so appreciative for your support, especially in this winter months when you're snowed in with the boys. 2026, we're going bigger than ever. As always, we need them likes, we need them comments, we need them subscriptions. So get involved.
Inshallah, for sure.
Right, we'll see you next week, stars then.
Love in a bit.